Hey, listen to Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM and ArrowFM. As always, I'm Grady, and live on Skype, back off being sick, we got Josh.
Hey.
And weirdly enough, we did a little bit of a pre-Survivor Series look at the matches last week. All of that's changed. Nothing we talked about last week is applicable this week, so entirely new show. We're going to start off Cruiserweight Championship, Buddy Murphy defending against Mustafa Ali.
It should be a fun match. Two are really talented, so it should be interesting. But the reign of Buddy Murphy does not end here.
Yes. I'm counting him as Australia and New Zealand, therefore I'm happy. So where are you seeing it end?
It'll be a little while.
Okay. He's not going to be a one and done?
No. He's not going to be a transitional champion.
I'm happy. Yeah, I think with the 205 Live roster right now, you can say pretty much for any championship match that's being made, these are two very talented guys and this match should be good. They've got to this point now where it's really hard to have a really bad match. Any two people on that roster should be able to go one-on-one and put on a good match. At least that's how I feel about them. And then on the kickoff, we're gonna get our first 5-on-5 Survivor Series Tag Team Elimination match, SmackDown versus Raw. It's the tag team division, and I'm gonna run out of breath trying to run down the competitors, but let's do this. Team Raw: Bobby Roode, Chad Gable, The Revival, Dash Wilder, Scott Dawson, the B Team of Bo Dallas and Curtis Axel, Lucha House Party with two of Lince Dorado, Kalisto, and Gran Metalik, and The Ascension, Connor and Victor taking on Team SmackDown, which includes the Usos, Jimmy and Jay, The New Day, two of Big E, Kofi, or Xavier Woods, two of Sanity, consisting of Alexander Wolf, Eric Young, and Killian Dane, Gallows and Anderson, and the Colones. There's a lot of people in that ring.
Yeah, not the first time they've done this.
No. A lot of trios, I realized as I was reading that out. I think there were 3 trios of 10 teams. But it's gonna just be your typical match, right? I feel like there's nothing crazy here. We mentioned scraping the bottom of the barrel, and I think we did a little bit. I wouldn't have predicted Lucha House Party to end up on Team Raw.
Yeah, that's when you know you don't have many teams in a division. When you have to go over to the cruiserweights and pull in a team from them.
To be fair, SmackDown I think still had a few left over. But their team is arguably... No, it's not even arguably. Is way better caliber than Team Raw.
Yeah, and Cesaro and Sheamus aren't there to win the match this time.
Yeah.
So, I'm gonna go with Team SmackDown.
Logically, it would be SmackDown. Like if I'm looking at Raw, you got Dallas, Axel, Lucha House Party, and the Ascension, who could arguably be your weak links here. And then you're looking at Team SmackDown, you pretty much just got the Colones. The other 8 guys who are going to be in the ring are going to be dominating forces. Mostly big guys. The Usos are probably your smaller guys who are going to be in there. So it'll be a bit interesting to see what happens, but I think SmackDown should win, and probably with a favorable amount of people left as well. I don't think it'll come down to one team, unless there's some dodginess happening with Sanity or maybe some other teams around the place. I think, to me, Sanity is the wild card for Team SmackDown. I don't know if they're just going to flip their lid and just beat up everybody. Given that it's on a pre-show, probably not. We probably won't get a storyline out of it. Let's just go down the rest of the Survivor Series matches while we're here, right? 5-on-5, Women's Division, Team Raw, Mickie James, Nia Jax, Tamina, Natalya, and Ruby Riott taking on Team SmackDown of Carmella, Naomi, Sonya Deville, Asuka, and TBA. And we'll get to why there's a TBA in there later on. But I think, again, the caliber bit more equal than the tag team one, but I think it all depends on who that TBA is going to be.
I'm going with Team SmackDown simply because they don't have Captain Alicia Fox this year.
That's your reasoning?
Hey, they won last year with her as a captain.
You make a good point. Yeah, I don't want to give too many of the wins to SmackDown. I'm definitely leaning that way. I feel like the only way it would go towards Team Raw would be if it was going to be the effort of Nia Jax and Tamina. I would quite like to see Ruby Riott get a bit of a showcase here looking at the 9 women announced so far, but we'll have to wait and see what happens in the match. I think this one's going to probably be fairly well put together.
I think I might know who the TBA might end up being.
Who you got?
Considering she showed up like last week to face Becky. She's unpredictable, unstable.
Well, that's no way to talk about Brie Bella, okay? Yeah,
a member of a certain stable that should be getting more use.
I feel like this is a statement about sanity more than it is Nikki Cross. We're just going to jump on our soapbox and talk about sanity for a little moment. Yeah, I can see that. I can see her sliding on in as the 5th. SmackDown has quite a good women's division in that I could still see quite a few others sliding in. So I wouldn't be too surprised if Nikki Cross decided to randomly show up, even if she beats up whoever they plan to put in as the 5th and takes the spot or something like that. I feel like that's something they could pull off, and she is crazy, you're right. The final 5v5 Survivor Series elimination match, Team Raw, Team SmackDown, the men's division, Dolph Ziggler, Drew McIntyre, Braun Strowman, Finn Balor, and Bobby Lashley taking on SmackDown's The Miz, the best in the world Shane McMahon, Rey Mysterio, Samoa Joe, and last-minute addition Jeff Hardy.
The reason I gave the first 2 to SmackDown is because I'm giving this one to Raw.
Okay.
Because, and it will be a sole survivor, and it will be your boy Drew.
Yeah. I'm happy. No further discussion required. If that is the option that we are angling for, I am happy with it. Let's just close it up, put it in an envelope, and send her off. Unobjectively, though, looking at the teams, they do have the bigger team. It's Drew and Braun versus Samoa Joe, pretty much, in terms of the bigger boys. Shane McMahon is the best in the world, but also a complete and utter wild card here. Ray and Jeff both like to do the flippy stuff. Finn will be doing that up against them, and Ziggler's always a strong dude to have in a bit of a background. And if I recall correctly, she does pretty decently in Survivor Series matches, usually.
Yeah, well, I also think SmackDown will suffer from the fact that the one person that they should have had on the team isn't on the team. Considering the fact that he's been in 6 or 7 of these type of matches and has won almost all but one.
Yeah, it was a little weird as well because Orton has been interacting with everybody who's on the SmackDown team.
So I can see him getting involved, costing Team SmackDown the win.
I might give you that. I think the fact that he has been interacting with everyone makes me think that he has put a target on the team's back and may show up and pick his next feud, basically. The SmackDown side of this entire pay-per-view pretty much having a huge shake-up this week, leading to everything being changed and changing the discussions entirely, I think. But we will get to that on the other side of our song. We're going to go into our song now. It's Daniel Bryan's theme, for reasons that will become very clear if you have not watched the show. And you're back with Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM, ArrowFM, Grady and Josh. Now we got the champions versus champions. AOP taking on The Bar.
We got... This is going to be a theme. Heel versus heel.
That's what happens when all your champions are...
I think I like AOP here.
Okay.
I really do. I think they could benefit the most from the win. Bar, it would be a feather in their cap, I guess, but it's not something that will make them. Whereas AOP could definitely be launched as a major player in the tag team divisions if they win this match.
I agree and disagree. I think AOP, as you said, would need this win, and it would do great things for them. It would make them look legitimate. You know, the Bar, very established team, being able to take them down. It would look great. I have no faith that is the way that it goes. And if I were a betting man, which I am, I would put my money on the Bar and the Big Show. Barring Big Show turning an odd number of times during the match, effectively ending in a heel state. I don't know, or a face state. I don't know. It's hard to tell. I just got a feeling that the Bar is going to be the ones that are going to be walking out of this victorious. It's like a heart versus head thing. My heart definitely says AOP. I think they got the short end of the stick coming up onto Raw. And now they're finally getting a chance to grab the ball and go. With Drake Maverick by their side, it's working out pretty well. They got the titles now, and I think this could just be a bit more of a momentum booster. But when you look at the team that they've fielded for the Raw tag team, Survivor Series team, it's not exactly the most competitive field that they're going to be going up against afterwards anyway. So, you know, how legitimate do AOP need to look heading into that field of teams? It's not exactly the craziest group talent-wise. Let's look towards the mid-card titles. Seth Rollins taking on Shinsuke Nakamura. Intercontinental Champion taking on the US.
This is going to be a pretty good match. It just depends on their chemistry. That's really all I gotta say about that. I'm gonna go with... I'll go with Shinsuke because I think Dean gets involved.
Yeah, there always is that dark looming figure over Seth at the moment, which is Dean. That is the feud he's in. And we find that often with these pay-per-views where it is Raw versus SmackDown, because usually, bar one match that we'll talk about later, the feuds between the brands are not like proper built feuds. They're not really cool, like built up things that you want to see. They're just going to be one-off attractions, and that means that both competitors that are in the matches are always in the middle of proper and built up feuds. And Seth's clearly is against Dean, and that's the way you see him going forward. After this match, Shinsuke's a little more up in the air in terms of who he's going to be heading after or who's going to be heading after him, which leaves you open to Seth Rollins' adversary coming in. And I think that rings true for pretty much every champ versus champ match, where there's always going to be someone hot on your heels. But this match specifically, just because Dean isn't on the show, obviously, leaves it a bit open for a bit of a dirty finish, letting Shinsuke ride on, continuing his feud, or continuing his character building that he's currently doing. I'm going to switch up the match order here, and I'm going to talk about the Universal Champion versus the WWE Champion. Now, last week, or this week on SmackDown, if you weren't paying attention, there was a last-minute change in this match, and that involved AJ Styles losing the WWE Championship to one Daniel Bryan, and then effectively letting Daniel Bryan flip his lid.
Yeah, he went rogue.
That's a real nice way to put what happened.
And it gives us further evidence that WWE is trying to give AJ Styles a vasectomy.
Yeah. AJ, to me, I didn't watch SmackDown live. Get it? It's the name. But I read the reports afterwards and I was like, I don't believe it. I thought I was getting punked. Just everything that happened on SmackDown. And, AJ Styles is off and we've switched the title to Daniel Bryan, and Daniel Bryan's now a heel, and all this other stuff that's happening in the women's division, and you're just sitting there like wide-eyed, like, where did this come from? I didn't see this coming at all.
Like Becky didn't see a certain punch in her face coming?
Boom. We're going to be referencing that for the next month.
It's just, it's interesting. I guess we'll get to see Brock Lesnar throw Daniel Bryan around for 10 minutes. Pretty much.
To me, the craziest part about it is that it snaps off the AJ Styles streak. When it seemed as though he was pretty much poised to break the record that I assume we want out of the record books.
Yeah, I guess plans change. I don't know. I don't know. This could very well have been what they were planning to do at Crown Jewel before Daniel Bryan said, "No, I'm not going."
To be fair, by the sounds of it, Daniel Bryan said, "No, I'm not going," a really long time ago. They just didn't believe him or listen to him. But yeah, to me, the one thing I have questioning this entire thing is now, how does The Miz work into this? Because I'm not ready to let this go.
If I'm WWE, I have Miz run with the fact that Daniel Bryan has finally shown the colors that he always said that Daniel Bryan had.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we would effectively turn him face through that.
Okay.
I think this time around, WWE and The Miz are more ready to be a face than they were the last time they tried it. And I think the fans will be more accepting because he's got a more believable story, and he's had that whole 2 years of build-up to it as well.
And
the fans have given him some equity as a result.
I think it'll be interesting. If before we thought it was a little bit predictable and we could see where it was going, this is a major curveball to what we expect. I guess, are you still expecting Bryan versus The Miz at WrestleMania?
I would still expect it. Although it may result in The Miz winning the Royal Rumble.
Pretty much a role reversal.
Yeah.
In terms of alignment and in terms of what we'd expected. But yeah, this is absolutely, I guess, crazy to me that, when we were talking about this Daniel Bryan, The Miz thing, if you told me they're going to be cheering for The Miz over Daniel Bryan, I wouldn't have believed you. I don't think at any point... Really?
Yes, especially after SummerSlam.
True.
Because The Miz got a lot of cheers in that match against Daniel Bryan. So I could definitely have seen it coming, it's just I didn't see the route.
Yeah. Maybe it was just a case of everybody seeing the writing on the wall. At least the fan reaction during Styles Bryan, before the flippity flip seemed to imply as well. I don't know if people hate is a really strong word, but I'm going to use it anyway. Hate Daniel Bryan, or if they just like his opponents more. I don't think he has that shine, that deafening cheers every time he comes out anymore that he used to have. And I don't want to say he lost his smile because that's way too stereotypical. But I look forward to seeing what happens with the Daniel Bryan character, and I continue to cross my fingers that The Miz is going to be involved in that. Final match. Champion versus champion. Ronda Rousey versus Becky Flair.
Oh, it's not a champion versus champion match anymore.
Yeah, I realized that. Just a random singles match.
Still Raw versus SmackDown, though. But yeah, we're getting this match about 6 months early.
Do you think that the two matches, obviously Ronda versus Charlotte and Ronda versus Becky, may end up flipped in terms of when they were meant to happen?
It's very possible. I've heard rumors of WWE's plans may switch to Ronda versus Becky recurring at WrestleMania. It's very possible that they may do it at the Royal Rumble, which is what I initially heard, and I thought they were just going to write Ronda's match off entirely, or give her just like somebody that's not doing anything on Raw right now, that's not part of the 5-on-5 match, and just give her a title defense. But then they announced Charlotte Flair, and I'm like, well, that's different.
Yeah.
The question is who wins this match? I think this will be the main event of the pay-per-view, by the way.
100%. That's why I talked about it last.
I'm going to go with Ronda winning. I think Charlotte's set to spiral out of control as far as she was on top and now she's been knocked off and she's going down.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I think Ronda is the favorite here in this match, despite the fact that Charlotte has been unstoppable during most of her portion on the main roster. I think Ronda holds the edge here. Before we analyze Rousey Flair too much, I would like to mention just, the Becky stuff that happened on Raw, where she invaded and looked like a total BA, a total Billy Gunn. And I really wish the match could have happened. But if it's going to be put off until WrestleMania and still happen, I could see it being perfectly fine that way. I think there's just so much hype behind this matchup, and at the moment, Becky is on top of the world. Her character work is some of the best, if not the best, and she's nailing everything that she's doing at the moment, and I'm hoping this is just going to be one of those temporary steps, a little bit of a hurdle, before we continue to run down the track of Becky.
They keep building her, and they may actually pull the trigger and put her over Ronda Rousey.
Let's not go that far.
Well, the plan, I think the initial plan was that Ronda would lose to Charlotte at WrestleMania. So if they switch the matches around, and Becky versus Ronda does occur at WrestleMania, there's a good chance if they keep building her, Becky, and they keep letting her do her thing, that they could put her over Ronda Rousey, something we wouldn't have said months ago.
No. I am arguably still not saying it today. Maybe give me a couple months. Maybe I'll come around on the plan. It just seems so insane. But it's something the Rousey-Becky match needs to happen. I feel like if it doesn't happen at this point, it's just such a waste. The feud is hot. They're both hot. Whether they can stretch it out for another 5 months or not, we'll have to wait and see. Especially if they're going to continue to be cross-brand.
Yeah. How we would have to get there, though, is we definitely have to have Becky drop the SmackDown Women's title before the Royal Rumble, I think. Which may come anyway, because they may have forced her to have to relinquish it while she's healing up anyway. Which is something I've also heard, that she may have to relinquish the title.
It seems as though I'm looking in the stars, and I see the obvious storyline of her dropping the title, returning at the Rumble, winning the Women's Royal Rumble, choosing to face Ronda. It feels like that's a straight line. It might not be the line we follow, it might not be the most obvious line, but it feels like that's a straight line to where we're headed.
And that was Charlotte Flair's path.
Yeah, minus the dropping the title and getting injuries, I assume. So yeah, I think that's what I see happening. And I think it says a lot that we've spent so much longer talking about Rousey-Becky than we have Rousey-Flair. Just because that's the hot match at the moment. That's the one everybody wanted. It's a little disappointing we're not going to get it. But yeah, pretty much it. Just a little disappointing. Any final comments about Survivor Series?
I think it should be a really good show.
Mm-hmm.
SmackDown, the Survivor Series is definitely hurt from a lack of time to build the stories.
Mm-hmm.
Because of Crown Jewel and Evolution. You take those two events out, and I think we have a much better built pay-per-view.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's been a bit rushed, to say the least. But I agree in that it will probably still be a fairly decent pay-per-view. The Big Four managed to normally not disappoint in a major way. And the 5-on-5 Survivor Series matches usually lend themselves to some really cool moments as well. All right, well, that's all we got time for. It's been great talking to you.
Peace out.
You can visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/WrestlingRadio, Twitter page, twitter.com/WrestlingRadio, and we'll see you next week with the results of Survivor Series.